Gas was cheap and sports cars from all over the automotive spectrum sold like hotcakes in the U.S. Ford regularly elevated the car to new performance heights, especially when the competition started firing back. Unburdened by decades of heritage, the firm often looked at ways to expand the lineup by taking its popular pony car in unexpected directions. Here are some of the models that made the 1960s the Mustang's heyday. Ford built the experimental, mid-engined Mustang I concept in 1962, to fill the void between go-karts and the Corvette. It became a candidate for production, surprisingly, but it ultimately remained at the concept stage. Company officials feared the two-seater layout would limit its appeal. Designers quickly began working on a follow-up concept. Named Mustang II, the second concept made its debut in 1963. It featured a more conventional front-engined, rear-wheel drive layout and a cabin with 4 seats. From a design standpoint, it accurately previewed many of the styling cues that later trickled down to the first volume-produced Mustang. Ford famously presented the Mustang during the World's Fair in New York City. It became an instant hit. The firm received 22,000 orders within 24 hours of the model's introduction, a figure that represented nearly a quarter of the 100,000 cars it hoped to sell annually. Ford manufactured the Mustang alongside the Falcon in Michigan and, later, in California and in New Jersey to keep up with demand. Engine options included a 101 horsepower straight-six and 3 V8s offered with 164 horsepower, 210 horsepower and 271 horsepower, respectively. Ford's archives indicate about 35% of Mustangs came with a 6-cylinder engine in 1965, its first full year on the market, the rest used an 8. The percentage of cars ordered with a 6 swelled to 42% in 1966. Ford approved the coupe, convertible and fastback variants of the Mustang before series production started. The company encouraged its designers to explore potential offshoots to expand the lineup if needed. Some projects revived the idea of turning the model into a 2-seater sports car, and at least one made it to the prototype stage. It was built by Dearborn Steel Tubing. Colloquially called Shorty, it measured 16 inches less than a regular production Mustang. All of the body panels beyond the windshield were made with fiberglass. Ford displayed the car across America, and rumors indicated it would reach production, but it remained at the concept stage. It narrowly escaped getting crushed when Vince Gardner, its designer, stole the car from Ford and stashed it in a warehouse. Mustang mania was in full swing in 1965. Ford had sold over 418,000 examples by the nameplate's first birthday on April 17, and it manufactured 518,252 during the 1965 calendar year. Decision-makers naturally sought ways to capitalize on the Mustang's popularity. Designers experimented with a 4-door model that made it to the prototype stage but never received the green light for production. Ford photographed the prototype above in 1963, which indicates the idea of a Mustang sedan predates the car's launch. Ford shipped a V8-powered Mustang to Ferguson Research in England to undergo a 4-wheel drive conversion. The full-time, 4-wheel drive system helped the experimental Mustang handle better than its rear-wheel drive counterpart, especially on wet roads, but the relatively high cost of the conversion sealed its fate. Ford cancelled the project, and it still hasn't warmed up to the idea of a 4-wheel drive Mustang, even though rival Dodge now offers the configuration on the Challenger. In an odd twist of automotive history, Ferguson's four-wheel drive technology found its way into the Jensen Interceptor. American race car builder Carroll Shelby saw a tremendous amount of potential in the Mustang. It was a pony car, not a full-blown muscle car, so its smaller dimensions and lighter weight made it a prime candidate for tuning. It helped that Shelby, who built and raced the Ford-powered Cobra, knew the Mustang's engine well. Built in 1965, the original Shelby GT350 used an upgraded version of the Mustang's optional 4.7-liter V8 modified to make 306 horsepower, a generous 35 horsepower bump over its stock output. Shelby also made changes to the front suspension and the steering system. Finally, he added 15-inch wheels. The GT350 occupied the space that separated street cars and race cars. Pricing started at $4,547, which represents about $36,000 today. Only select Ford dealers sold the GT350. In an unlikely partnership, Ford and Shelby teamed up to create the GT350H for Hertz. The H model used the same 4.7-liter, 306 horsepower V8 engine as the standard GT350, but it received several edition-specific visual distinctions, including Hertz Sports Car Club logos on the wheels. Ford made 1,001 examples of the car and distributed them to Hertz locations across America to promote the GT350. The firm hoped enthusiasts would rent one, get hooked and buy one. Hertz Sports Car Club members over 25 years old could pay $17 a day, $130 today, and 17 cents a mile to rent one. While it did lure curious motorists to Hertz lots, the GT350H predictably became wildly popular among enthusiasts who welcomed it as a cheap way to spend a weekend racing. Some allegedly went as far as dropping the Shelby engine into their lesser Mustang for the duration of a race and swapping it back into the H before returning it to Hertz. The program earned the nickname Rent-A-Racer. Ford and Hertz have re-released a Mustang twice since the original GT350H. Ford placed building a more spacious Mustang high on its list of priorities. The coupe couldn't credibly morph into a yacht-sized station wagon, so designers privileged the two-door body style often called shooting brake. Ford built at least one prototype, but it once again canned the project to focus on the existing coupe, fastback and convertible body styles. Colorado experienced a decline in Mustang sales before the rest of the U.S. Understandably worried, Ford attempted to prop up sales by releasing a limited edition model named High Country Special sold exclusively in the Colorado area. Introduced in 1966, the High Country Special received edition-specific plaques on the front fenders. Ford offered it in three Colorado-themed colors called Aspen Gold, Columbine Blue and Timberline Green, respectively. Buyers could combine the package with any body style and drivetrain configuration. Ford again offered the package in 1967. It returned in 1968 with more modifications, including rear lights borrowed from the Thunderbird, and also found on the 1968 Shelby models, plus several fiberglass parts including the trunk lid. In reality, the 1968 High Country Special started life as a California Special, another regional variant, and received Colorado-specific decals upon its arrival in Denver. In 1964, the Mustang caught the competition by surprise. 1967, rivals like Chevrolet, Pontiac and Dodge caught up. Ford joined the horsepower war by adding a 6.4-liter V8 to the palette of available engines. It made 320 horsepower and it added $264, about $2,000 today, to the cost of the car. The GT500 dethroned the GT350 as the most powerful Shelby-tuned Mustang on the block. Introduced in 1967, it traded the comparatively small 4.7-liter V8 for a Cobra Source 7.0-liter unit with 355 horsepower on tap. 1967 also brought an array of aesthetic modifications, including a bigger hood scoop made to widen the distance between the standard fare Ford Mustang and the Shelby-designed model. Officially, the GT500 occupied the top spot in the Shelby Mustang hierarchy during 1967. Behind the scenes, Shelby turned the performance dial up a few additional notches to create an engineering study commissioned by Goodyear to test high-performance tires. Named Super Snake, the GT500-based prototype received a 520-horsepower V8 engine, upgraded front brakes and a Detroit locker rear end, among other modifications. It reached 170 miles per hour on Goodyear's private test track in Texas. Shelby considered releasing the Super Snake to the public, but it canceled the project for cost reasons. The Super Snake consequently remains a one-off prototype. It recently traded hands for $1.3 million. Shelby American will re-release the Super Snake as a continuation car this year. Ford introduced the 1968 Shelby GT500 OKR, short for King of the Road, at the 1967 New York Auto Show as a mid-season replacement for the GT500. It received the 7.0-liter Cobra Jet V8 with about 400 horsepower. Fiberglass body panels helped keep weight in check, which was important because the Mustang had gotten considerably bigger and heavier since its introduction. Ford dealers sold 1,570 examples of the GT50 OKR in 1968, its only year on the market. The GT500 returned as the top dog Shelby in 1969. 1968 also brought the GT350, a new V8 engine rated at 250 horsepower, a 56 horsepower drop compared to the outgoing unit found in 1967 and earlier cars. An optional Paxton supercharger brought horsepower back up to 335. The Chevrolet Camaro and the Pontiac Firebird both offered bigger engines than the Mustang, a major concern in an era when horsepower, not tech or fuel economy, sold cars. Ford responded by adding yet another V8, a 7.0-liter with 390 horsepower, to the list of options. It lowered the Mustang's 0 to -60 miles per hour time to approximately 6 seconds. In 1968, Mustang buyers could choose from a single six-cylinder rated at 115 horsepower and no less than 6 V8 options whose outputs ranged between 195 and 390 horsepower. Ford introduced the Mach 1 nameplate in the fall of 1968 for the 1969 model year. It denoted a performance-oriented option package for the Mustang. Think of it as the rough 1960s equivalent to the competition package brands like BMW offer today. Ordering the Mach 1 package added the now famous black hood with closing pins, an upgraded suspension and a nicer interior. Buyers could also order the model with spoilers on both ends. The 5.8-liter V8 came standard. More powerful 8s awaited buyers on the list of options. The emblematic Boss 302 variant arrived alongside the redesigned 1969 Mustang. Ford created it as a homologation special to race the Mustang in the Sports Car Club of America's SCCA Trans Am Series. The name 302 came from the car's 302 cubic inch 4.9-liter V8 engine, a unit conservatively rated at 290 horsepower in street tune. Suspension modifications helped drivers make the most of the extra power. The Boss 302 lost the 1968 Trans Am Championship to the Camaro, its arch-rival, and it lost again the following year. It finally won the series in 1970. To cover all bases, Ford added a more luxurious model named Grande to the Mustang family in 1969. Carrying a $231, about $1,600 today, premium, the Grande came standard with a vinyl roof and a nicer interior with imitation wood trim, among other upgrades. The list of engine options grew again for the 1969 model year. The six-cylinder stayed the same with its lackadaisical 115 horsepower output. The 8-cylinder crop included 8 different engines officially rated between 220 and 370 horsepower, though historians almost unanimously agree their output was much higher. Ford, like most of its rivals, downrated its engines in promotional material. Over 81% of the 1969 production run came with a V8. More than 71% received an automatic transmission. Note, 1971 to 1973 Grande pictured. The 302 wasn't the only Boss variant offered in 1969. Ford commissioned a Michigan-based company named CarCraft to stuff the 429 cubic inch, 7.0-liter V8 it planned to use to take down Chrysler in NASCAR racing in a limited production Mustang variant. Built strictly for homologation reasons, the 370 horsepower Boss 429 stood out as the most powerful member of the 1969 Mustang lineup. CarCraft made a total of 1359 Boss 429s by hand for the 1969 and 1970 model years. The production process involved making several tedious modifications under the hood to make space for the bigger V8. Ford has a history of making drastic decisions in response to shifting market trends. 1974, with the embers of the 1973 oil crisis still glowing, the firm completely reinvented the Mustang by building it on the smaller Pinto platform and giving it a rear hatch first seen on the Mach 1 concept. The changes warranted a new name, Mustang II. Company officials hoped they'd better align the born-again Mustang with imported sports cars like the Toyota Celica. While collectors shun it, the Mustang II got mixed reviews when it was new. Some enthusiasts loved it and understood its new positioning in the context of the changes sweeping across the American automotive industry. Others wrote it off as an underpowered, poorly built pony car wannabe. In hindsight, both sides presented valid arguments. What's certain is the Mustang II never reached the performance heights of its predecessor.